How are we doing there, boys and girls? Matthews here, and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to look at blacksmithing. Blacksmithing is a fantastic profession for making gold. It's one I've made a lot of gold with in the past, and it's actually a really good one for beginners to get into as well. The ease of access for blacksmithing is pretty good. It's not super expensive to level up. It's not super difficult to level up. It's a really good one to start with. So let's break this down into as much detail as we can and work out exactly how we can make a load of gold with blacksmithing. Now, firstly, I should start off by saying that we do most of our gold making on stream. We do most of the testing for these videos on stream. So come check us out. We stream over on twitch.tv/Manthius. We do it Monday through till Friday, each and every week. Come say hi, ask your gold making questions, and we'll all have a good time. But what's one of the first things we should do with blacksmithing? Well, I'm going to make a couple of assumptions for this video that you've firstly already got your character to 60. While it's not essential to get your character to max level for the purpose of making gold with blacksmithing, it really does help, and you'll understand why in a minute. I'm also going to make the assumption that you've leveled up blacksmithing to its highest. There's no point trying to make huge amounts of gold before you've actually leveled the profession up. It's relatively quick and easy to do, and I've got some other guides on my YouTube channel on exactly how to level up your Shadowlands blacksmithing. I'll leave a link in the description down below to how you can do that. But let's look at the first way of making gold with blacksmithing, and it's one of my favourite methods. For anybody that follows the channel on a regular basis will know, yep, we're talking about Legendaries. Legendaries are an absolutely fantastic way right now to make gold with blacksmithing, simply because there are a bunch of plate classes and everybody wants at least one legendary. There are people out there that want multiple legendaries. We also know going forward, if you're watching this in the future, firstly, hi. If you're watching this in the future, we already have the indication that in patch 9.1 and further on into the Shadowlands expansion, that legendaries are still going to be a thing. So getting up and running with your legendary crafting as quickly as possible is going to be nothing more than a massive advantage to you. There are a couple of cool nuances with the blacksmithing legendaries that make it different from the others. Firstly is the very heavy requirement on two vendor materials. In fact, all of the legendary crafting uses arboreal shards. There's a couple of tricks with the arboreal shards. Firstly, make sure you are of good standing with either the Wild Hunt or the Avowed in Bastion. Not the Avowed, sorry, the Kyrian in Bastion. Either one of those guys will have a vendor that can sell you your arboreal shards much cheaper. If you buy your arboreal shards in Oribos, they're 125 gold a piece, but if you head over to either Ardenweld or you head over to Bastion, you can get them for as low as 100 gold a piece, depending on how high your reputation is with those factions. Very worthwhile. Now, of course, on my Paladin is a Kyrian, and so I get a good standing with them. There is another sneaky way you can do it if you happen to be a goblin. If you play on the Horde side and you happen to be a goblin, you get max vendor discount straight away, so you'll be able to get your arboreal shards much cheaper also. But I did mention there was two vendor materials that we use when it comes to making gold with the blacksmithing legendaries. The second one being Luminous Flux. Luminous Flux, as we went into Shadowlands, was relatively cheap and you didn't even really have to think about it. But there was a subtle change to some of the vendor prices quite early on in Shadowlands, and it bumped the price of Luminous Flux up really high. We can use a similar trick as we use with the arboreal shards to get the price of this as cheap as possible. Either be Horde and be a Goblin, GG Goblins, or secondly, you want to head over to a faction, namely one of your main capital factions. So either Stormwind or Orgrimmar are going to be the ones that I would sort of recommend you look towards. If you're exalted with either one of those guys, you can get the Luminous Flux cheaper from the vendors there as well. You can see currently I'm in Stormwind, I'm over in the Dwarven District, and I can speak to the blacksmith supplier, and I can get my Luminous Flux a bit cheaper. You can actually technically get it even cheaper than this. I believe you can get it down to 7 gold 25, I want to say, but going a little bit out of your way to get the Luminous Flux even as cheap as possible is really going to help you when you start crafting those legendaries. Additionally, one thing that always gets asked when it comes to the legendaries is which one should I start leveling up first. People are obviously aware that with the legendaries there is 4 ranks, but it takes a lot of crafts. It takes 15 crafts, in fact, of each previous rank to unlock the next rank. And some people want to try and focus on whichever is going to be the ones that's most profitable. I tend to say that the best way of doing it is just craft one of every one. They're not ridiculously expensive, and if I'm honest, if you're trying to get into the legendary game, you are going to need a good amount of gold to start with, but craft one of every single one, get them up on the auction house, get it sold. When you sell it, craft another one and repeat that same process, and eventually you'll unlock rank 2s, you'll unlock rank 3s, you'll unlock rank 4s. Anything that on your realm is super profitable and super in demand is arguably going to be the ones that will sell faster. The market will tell you what's popular. You don't need to worry about it too much. Just the simple rule of have one crafted and one listed on the auction house at all times, and you should be absolutely golden. Now, of course, you don't want to be selling them at under crafting cost. Be aware of your pricing and be aware of your costs of these sorts of things. This is where I'll recommend you a little tool that I put together. I put this together at the beginning of Shadowlands, and it's helped a lot of people. It's our legendary crafting cheat sheet. Let's bring this into screen for you right now. One moment. Here we go. So, the plate legendary base item cheat sheet. Please feel free to use this. This is linked in our Discord. Once again, link to the Discord is down below. You can very simply put in the price of the materials on your realm. You can see you get your luminous flux nice and cheap. You get your boreal shards nice and cheap. Put the prices of the other materials in there, and it'll tell you things like your crafting cost for each items. It'll tell you how much it's going to cost you if you were to make 15 of that said item to unlock the next rank. This has been really helpful for lots of people. You can see even to this day many people still jump on and use this spreadsheet from time to time. Gives you a good indication of how much it's going to cost you to get up and running. Feel free to use that. Link is in the description. But so legendaries, we know that legendaries is a cool way of making gold. Is there anything else that we can do with blacksmithing that really stands out? Well, there are a couple of things. Maybe you're not ready for legendaries. I get that. It can be quite expensive to get up and running with legendaries. If they're not for you, let's look at something that's a little bit cheaper. Blacksmiths are fantastic because they have the ability to craft all of the weapons. Everybody, when they're leveling their characters in this game, would like to be able to just go to the auction house and buy a cheap weapon. People always end up with like crappy weapons that are just way below item level, and this is where blacksmiths can step in. You can make yourselves all, I think by default they all start at requires level 50. I think they all require level 50, so these are perfect to have them crafted and up on the auction house. But you may find the ones that are item level 100 and require level 50, you may find that there's not a huge profit in these, and you may find that they sell relatively slowly. There's a trick to making a lot more gold with these weapons, and it's to use a crafter's mark. Any profession in the game currently can create crafter's marks. The weapons can have crafter's marks 1. If you create the crafter's mark 1, it will bump up the item level. It will increase the item level to 117. Along with that will come obviously more stats on that weapon. It will hit harder, do more DPS, more goods, right? But it will also increase the item level requirement to 55. Now, so when people are leveling their characters from 50 to 60, it's once again very probable that they'll get halfway through, their weapon will be super out of date, they'll be looking for a new one, and if you can craft some of these items, get them up on the auction house. A good example, right? The ceremonious claymore. If you look at the actual regional market average selling price of these things, it's about 300 gold for the default one. It's alright, it's going to cost you 100 gold. You're not going to sell many though. Look what happens when you put a crafter's mark 1 on it and see what happens to the price. All of a sudden the regional average price has gone up by a couple of 100 gold. In fact, it's almost doubled. It's gone up to 586 gold. Now, of course, this is the region average. Your realm may differ, but my point stands that you can spend a little bit of extra gold on creating these crafter's marks. Use those crafter's marks when crafting these items, and all of a sudden you've got an item that's more powerful and will be more useful to people to pick up and use whilst they're leveling. As far as Shadowlands is concerned, there's not a huge amount extra than that. One thing we do need to talk about for a minute or two though is the Shadowgas Ingots. Shadowgas Ingots are, believe it or not, a really good way to make gold. If you dip your toe into the Legendary game, you will know that you need Shadowgas Ingots. You need thousands of the things. You can see my bags right now. I'm constantly crafting Shadowgas Ingots. But even if you're not getting into the Legendary game, you can and you should still be crafting and selling Shadowgas Ingots. Jewel crafters also need them. And that's going to be your main target market. Jewel crafters often don't have access to a blacksmith themselves to make the Shadowgas Ingots, so they're going to look and turn to the auction house to buy theirs. A few tricks with this. You can see the materials once again. It requires one of each of the zone specific ores. Do a little bit of research. Jump on places like the Undermine Journal. The Undermine Journal can tell you when during the week these 4 specific ores are at their best price to buy. Buy some of these ores when they're cheap. Buy them in bulk if you need to when they're cheap. And get crafting some Shadowgas Ingots. Trust me, you can usually double your money on these if you do it right. Especially if you're going out of your way to get the Luminous Flux at a nice cheap price as well. Shadowgas Ingots can be a really good money maker, and it's relatively AFK. You buy a bunch of ore, you buy a bunch of flux, keep it in your bags or throw it in the bank, click create all, go make a sandwich, take the dog for a walk, go say hi to the wife, whatever you need to do. Come back at half an hour later and you've got thousands of Shadowgas Ingots ready to throw up on the auction house. Really quick, really simple, really easy gold. Okay then, that's basically Shadowlands in a nutshell. There are the weight stones, the sharpening stones. These are something that you should probably have always listed on the auction house, but realistically, you're not going to make yourself wealthy from these. It's a nice little bit of gold here and there. People are going to need these when they go to do their raiding, to go do their Mythic Plus for the week, whatever their main activity is. People will usually turn to the auction house and buy a stack of these at a time. They're not super expensive to make. They'll probably make you a small amount of gold. Have some crafted, have them on the auction house, and you'll do alright with them. But there's not much more to say about those. So, with that said though, what if you happen to not be level 60, and what happens if you don't actually have Shadowlands even as a profession? Can you still make gold with blacksmithing? Yes, just obviously not as much. There are a few items that really stand out from past expansions that I would recommend you at least start having a look at. One of them is, let me see, it would be easier if I just search for it, is the Felm Core. Here we go. The Felm Core Hound Harness. This was from back in Legion. Now it does require you to go into the Nighthold and down Tichondrius to try and get the pattern for this, but it's a mount. Mounts always sell. One thing to note with this is that the Blood of Sargeras may be a bit of a pain for you to acquire. You want to do a little bit of research on how's the best way for you to go about getting a whole bunch of those. 50 Blood of Sargeras is a sizable amount to farm up. You can do some daily quests out in Legion if you really need to get them. Your Fellhide, your Infernal Brimstones, the same sort of thing. Do some world quests on the regular, and of course you as a blacksmith actually craft your own Demon Steel bars. So this is a good one to have up on the auction house. Mounts sell. They may not make you huge amounts of gold, but they do sell. Region wide, one of these sells every day on every realm, roughly. Almost 15% of them that get listed on the auction house end up selling. These are some good numbers. If you can create them nice and cheaply, get them on the auction house, just keep one on the auction house, and as it sells, you know, have the materials set aside to craft another one. Over time, you'll sell a few of these and you'll make a bunch of gold. But what else is there? What else is there that we can use with blacksmithing? Well, there's a couple of things that I'd like to point out. Burning Crusade. This sounds really odd, right? But Burning Crusade was an absolutely massive expansion for really rare plans and patterns. If you go all the way back, let's just take a quick look back and look at some of the weapons specifically. These are quite difficult to get the patterns for. You can't just go to a trainer and learn these patterns. You probably need to do a bit of farming to get them, or turn to the auction house and buy the pattern. Now the patterns are, when they're listed on the auction house, are probably going to be relatively expensive, but just keep an eye on them, because every once in a while somebody will get one when they're leveling through Outland. They won't know what it's worth and they'll throw it on the auction house really cheap, and that's where your opportunity is. You can snag some of these up. I mean, if you happen to be super duper mega fantastically lucky and get the pattern for the Fell Steel Longblade, this thing is worth bucks. This thing, it's a really cool katana looking weapon. It's got the nice red blade to it. This thing tends to sell for ridiculous amounts, and there are another couple that are relatively similar. Fell Edged Battle Axe, for example, is another one. Really cool appearance, relatively difficult to get the pattern for, but if you, once again, put in the effort, try and get these patterns. If you get them, get the items crafted, get them on the auction house, you'll make yourself a lot of gold. Well, there we go then, boys and girls. I think I'm going to leave it there for blacksmithing. That's pretty much the ins and outs. A couple of things just to give you a quick overview then. If you can get into the legendary market, there's loads of gold to be made in the legendaries, and the legendaries don't appear to be going anywhere. They're going to be a staple throughout the Shadowlands expansion by the looks of things, and you really want to get on board with them. Get some of the basic crafted gear up and running if you haven't already. If you're not ready to get into the legendary market because of the amount of gold that you need to be able to do it effectively, try some of the crafting gear, try some of the leveling gear. There's a lot of gold to still be made in that, and it's a good opportunity for you. If you don't have that max level character, if you don't have the willingness to step into the legendary market, then maybe look at some of the past expansions. Blacksmiths make hundreds of different weapons. People love their transmog. There's lots of things out there for you. But there we go, boys and girls. That's blacksmithing in a nutshell. I hope that gives you some heads up and some pointers and directions to go out and make gold with your blacksmith, as it can be very, very lucrative. If you enjoy this type of video, remember to hit the like button. It really helps my channel grow. Subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.